can I just say one thing firstly? I love the name Eat, Sleep, Boxing, Repeat.
Welcome back to ESBR Boxing's YouTube channel in partnership with sharpbetting.co.uk, your home for betting tips and analysis. Delighted as always to be joined by Punch Out Boxing's Ra Hokum and ESBR Boxing's Owen McKendry. This is the big fight breakdown for the big heavyweight fight taking place this weekend between Joe Joyce, the Juggernaut, and Filip Hrgovic. Not the fight we were expecting, chaps. Joe Joyce versus Dillian Whyte was announced, and then couple of weeks ago, Dillian Whyte has pulled out with an injury, and we have got this fight instead. Good to be joined by both of you as always. Ra, got to get through a couple of things, but I wanted to get your opinion on with Joe Joyce. It's been feels maybe like a bit of quite a quick decline. He was seen as a top 5 heavyweight by some until fighting Zhilei Zhang. Fought Zhilei Zhang again. Lost in kind of a worse fashion. Didn't look great against Cash Ali, and then lost to a 41-year-old Derek Chisora. In your eyes, what's happened the last couple of years with Joe Joyce?
Combination of age catching up, a style which is conducive to taking a lot of punishment, and I wonder bad matchmaking, in particular the two Zhang fights. Some serious questions have to be asked about his management's decision there. Yeah, I would say it's those three things. I'm not convinced yet that he's actually as declined as people think he is. There's a lot of talk about that showing clear signs of CTE because, in interviews he zones out and struggles to get his words out. But as our colleague Hatman pointed out, if you look at his earliest interviews when he first turned pro, he was also struggling to get words out. He's just not a good speaker. So I don't think that's a good measure of how much brain damage he's actually sustained. Adam Morali says, all his CTs, brain scans and what have you are coming up fine. So, yeah, so it could just be a matter of the matchmaking and the styles of the fighters. And I remember we talked about Derek Chisora before the Valine fight, and I gave the opinion that I didn't think he was as declined as we all thought. That he's actually just sort of plateaued down to a certain level and is now able to fight the way he fights at a certain level. And the way he disposed of Valine, that when I think all of us didn't agree that happened. Maybe Chisora isn't as bad as we thought, so losing to him maybe isn't as bad as we've thought with Joe Joyce.
No, brilliant. Look, and we'll see where he's at now, won't we? I think Filip Hrgovic will get on to him in a little bit, but if Joe Joyce can beat Filip Hrgovic, then I think that will kind of partly answer the question of how much in decline really is he. Owen, what's your opinion on the Joyce situation? Because he was kind of genuinely seen as this kind of top, as a top heavyweight. Let's not forget he's beaten Daniel Dubois by stoppage, beaten Joseph Parker by stoppage. But yeah, it's now kind of seems to have been relegated the last couple of years. What's your view on the situation?
I think it was always inevitably going to happen at some point. With his fighting style as he gets older. Using your head as your defense, you're only going to last so long at the top level before coming unstuck. And even if, the Zhang losses hadn't have happened, I don't think we'd have seen him at the top level for too much longer, using your head as your form of a guard. So I think that was always going to play a major part. I think, like Ra said, matchmaking, horrific matchmaking. He could have sat out, waited and forced a world title fight. Even if the bouts were unified or undisputed, we know what the governing bodies are like. He could have just sat tight, demanded, on mandatory, strip them or make them fight me, that type of thing. Going in with Zhang, I think, like we said on the first fight on the channel, was always dangerous, a bit silly. And then, taking the rematch was just utter stupidity. Sometimes I think you see fighters, they lose their soul a little bit after getting stopped. They're a bit more tentative, to necessarily don't want to engage as much. But I think as much as it physically takes it out, yeah, I do think it takes it mentally out of you, especially the second fight. That punch was unbelievable from Zhang. So I do think it's had some mental effects on Joe Joyce as well, which we've seen in his performances since. So yeah, I just think a case of fight style, age, and just plain stupidity matchmaking.
Yeah, for sure. I think look that volunteering to fight Zhilei Zhang was a very strange call. I think we can all agree on that. Oh, and I'll stick with you. Hrgovic, I imagine, is the favourite for this fight. We'll have a look at the odds close to the time. But if Hrgovic wins, is he then a top 10 heavyweight in your book? In some people's books, he might still be a top 10 heavyweight. He still is ranked highly within three of the governing bodies. He's obviously only got that one loss on his record, which is to Daniel Dubois, which I suppose isn't aging badly at all. Otherwise had a close fight against Zhilei Zhang, which he won, and yeah, has won in every other fight as well. Thoughts on kind of Hrgovic's status if he was to win this fight?
I think ability wise, he can definitely be a top 10 heavyweight, but I just think, I did think when he in his earlier fights, Hrgovic was going to be a problem, but a heavyweight that hasn't really got a gas tank and doesn't really have the ability to just switch people's lights out. The more I watch him now, can he really be a top 10 heavyweight with that? He was up against Dubois, he was winning rounds. I comfortably had him winning the fight at the stage of the stoppage, but you just seen what was going to happen. If it carried on any longer, I think Dubois would have ironed him out, and he would have been asleep, sort of thing. So I think there has been question marks over his fitness and how can he do it? In sort of like 10, 11, 12, especially the Zhang fight. It was like two bus drivers at the end of it. So I think ability, technically, definitely could be a top 10 heavyweight, but he needs to sort his gas tank out. I just think, like I say, if you don't have the ability to switch someone's lights out in an instant and you've got no gas tank, you're going to have a ceiling at heavyweight and it's not going to be very high. So I think if he can work on that, if he can sort his fitness out, I think he's definitely a top 10 heavyweight in there. But until he does that, I think he'll keep finding himself coming unstuck as he tries to step up the levels.
Yeah, no, look, we'll see. I think the heavyweight division is potentially an interesting place in the next 12 months or so with if Usyk is genuinely going to retire soon, and there could be a number of heavyweights who could kind of then win a world title, and whether Filip Hrgovic is going to be one of those, we're not sure. Ra, where is Hrgovic now for you, and where will he be if he wins this fight?
For me, I've never seen the big fuss about him. The only thing about him that I've been impressed by was his tremendous chin. We talk about Joyce's chin, but Hrgovic, he's left hands off Zhang, flush left hands off Zhang, and smiled back. At numerous right hands off Dubois, weren't smiling, certainly not by the end of it, but he never looked in any serious trouble. So if anyone's got an iron chin in the division, it's him. The technical side of it, well, I don't have a great eye for the subtleties of what some of these fighters do, but going by what a lot of his ex-sparring partners and opponents have said, they've said that he is actually technically exceptional. But for me personally, I don't think he's a genuine top 10 at this point. But like I said, going by what that people say about his technicalities, yes, I would expect him to be well back in. And in fact, incredibly, a couple of the governing bodies have moved him back up the rankings in the top 10 since his defeat to Dubois without him even having fought. So, which is surprising because he always complained that because he's from a small country, he won't get any favors and blah, blah, blah. Well, actually, judging by how he's being ranked, he is getting a favor. Yeah, I expect him if he wins this, he'll be well back in the mix, and within the next year or two, I expect him to contest one of the belts. Whether he can win it or not, there's a lot of good youngsters who are coming up ready to sort of mop up the post-Usyk era. So, and as Owen said, he's got his limitations with his gas tank and lack of real punching power. Some of these youngsters coming up, they don't have those flaws. So time will tell if his technical ability really is as good as people have said it is.
Yeah, no, we shall see. Look, he's we'll see what's left in the career of Filip Hrgovic, about to turn 33, so could potentially have a good 5, 6 years ahead of him, or could not have long left at all. But we'll see. Ra, what mentioned the fight that we were supposed to be talking about, Joe Joyce against Dillian White. What fight what are you more excited about when it comes to you settling down on a Saturday night? Um, what kind of what intrigues you more? Is it Joe Joyce against Dillian White, or Joe Joyce versus Filip Hrgovic?
I think the fight we've got now. I think White's been out of the picture for so long that out of sight, out of mind type of thing. So also, White has suffered three bad knockouts over the course of his career. I think it's fair to say his punch resistance is probably gone. Also, the flat manner in which he performed when he finally got his big chance in challenging for the heavyweight title, that's taken a lot of luster off, off of him as a challenger and as a contender. So, whereas Hrgovic, yeah, he fell short in his big opportunity against Dubois. But nevertheless, for those reasons we just discussed, he's still intriguing, because of his punch resistance. We can expect him to, make it an intriguing fight with Joyce. And, there's that a little bit of background, because of their, how the amateurs went. Was it a controversial win for Joyce in the Olympics? Although there's not beef between them, but there's a bit of history there. They're both from that class of 2016 who have disappointed so badly in the pros. So yeah, I'm more intrigued by this than I was with the original fight with White.
Yeah, Owen, do you agree with Ra? I think Joyce versus White, you could have potentially seen two guys both past their best, but both still with power, swinging away at each other. What fight excites you more?
As I said before we come on, it's a really good question. I was having a good think about it, but I think I agree with Ra. I think there's a couple more variables to this fight. I think Joyce White is probably just a case of whoever lands that big punch first. Both been stopped and stopped badly. Both, like say, arguably declining. Probably not much in it. Whereas I think with Hrgovic, like we said in this video, there's the questions over the gas tank. Joe Joyce has had questions himself. Where is Joe Joyce at? Where's Hrgovic at? Especially after the Dubois loss. Hrgovic, as Ra said, has got a great chin. That's been tested by some top heavyweights. Is Joe Joyce's punch power still there? Can he hurt Filip Hrgovic? So I think when I look at it like that, there's a lot more variables into the Hrgovic fight that intrigues me more. I think there's probably more plausible outcomes as well. Then I think if White fights Joyce, it's a knockout either side. Where I think this one with the different questions of the variables, I think this one definitely intrigues me more.
Fantastic. And with that being said, we'll finish up with some predictions. As always, Ra, you're the special guest here. Well, not really, because you're on our channel quite a lot now. But I'll let you have the first prediction. Joe Joyce, Filip Hrgovic, who wins and how?
It was interesting. I saw Hrgovic's first interview since he lost with Box Nation, and he said that he's not been in full camp, um, but he's been training. He alluded to something about managing it, and as Owen's pointed out, he's got serious question marks over his gas tank. Um, I think he will box carefully. Um, but his gas tank will start to let him down in the second half of the fight. But I think much like the Zhang fight, he'll sort of hang in there to take a decision. So yeah, I think it'll be a fight of two halves, but I think Hrgovic will do enough in the first part of the fight to eke out a decision.
Okay, 1-0 to Hrgovic. Owen, give us your prediction.
Yeah, I agree with Ra. I think Hrgovic is going to take all the early rounds. I think Joyce is going to go looking for the stoppage. I think Hrgovic is probably going to have to weather quite a storm. And I think sort of the last couple of rounds could be barely any punches landed. Similar to, like you said, Rouse said again, the Zhang fight, I think we could be looking at that. Obviously, I alluded to that as like watching two bus drivers. Don't know if it'll necessarily be the same, but I do think we could be watching a slugfest without the slugging at the end of the fight. And I think Hrgovic will just creep towards a close points victory.
Fantastic. I'm going to disagree with both of you. I'm interested. I think one factor here is what sort of shape does Hrgovic turn up in. We'll see how he looks on fight week at the weigh-in. Whereas for like with Joe Joyce, I believe he's kind of stayed in shape, but we'll see. Joe Joyce has turned up to fights out of shape in the past, and I just think I echo what War said without sounding too brutal. I wasn't fully on the Hrgovic hype train. I'm not sure if he had really beaten the top 10, top 15 heavyweight when he has done Zhilei Zhang. I think that was a highly contentious decision. So I'm going for Joyce. I'm going for Joyce to win, which I think could surprise some people. I will actually go for a points win. I'm not sure Joyce. I think Joyce is still aware of what's happened the last couple of years and will fight a bit scared. So I'm not sure she's going to commit too much. So that could involve in maybe not a great fight, but yeah, Joe Joyce winning via a points decision. We'll leave it there, gents. Good to speak to you as always. I think expect the unexpected here. I think I think Joe Joyce, say what you want about Joe Joyce's fights, are quite entertaining. And Filip Hrgovic, we'll have to see what version of him turns up as well. Owen, Ra, good to be joined by both of you, and I'll speak to both of you again very soon.
Cheers, mate.